today's episode, we are excited to welcome Fausta Ballesteros, Chief Marketing Officer and Chief Experience Officer at Wizeline. Fausta has extensive experience in marketing and communication strategies across global markets, including the Americas, Europe, and Asia. Originally from Argentina and now based in New York, she holds a master's degree in marketing from Universidad de San Andrés and has completed several leadership programs at Yale School of Management and at Universidad de Austral de Buenos Aires. Throughout her career, Fausta has held key roles at leading companies such as Cognizant, Softvision, Globant, Shell, Unilever, and American Express. At Wiseline, she leads the global brand and go-to-market strategy, while also shaping and nurturing the company's culture and people experience across all operations and delivery centers. Fausta, welcome to a Mentors Office podcast. A pleasure.
Thank you, Alvaro. Thank you for having me.
Well, I was really looking forward to this interview and learning more about you and your role. And I want to start this interview by talking about when did you realize that you wanted to become a chief marketing officer?
Well, I don't know if there's a day that you say, well, I want to be, right, a CMO, but it's kind of more a journey, right, where you're developing your career and then mostly the right things happen. So for me, it's all related to teams, right? I think more what has a CMO role is more that leadership team, right? That it helps you choose your team, choose who you are going to work with and where you're going to develop. So for me, it's related to that, right? My passion for building high performance teams, global, cross functional, that kind of coaching element of making sure that I can build a team that everyone can shine and be their best version, right? And of course, to be able to have a strategic planning, right, and see, okay, I can see the big picture and take action and execute what I dream, right? So especially
But
driving
was it
growth.
your dream as a child to be a chief marketing officer or not? Or what did you at that time? What did you dream of, or what?
I dreams about brands. Yes,
Okay.
so it was more about. I thought I was going to be working more in advertising, more the creative
Okay.
part, and
Wait, but it has been more or less like a long term goal, right? Or not? Or don't you
yes,
think so?
yes. I think as a child, I wanted to be. I was a very fan of the Coca-Cola brand, right? So that
Okay.
I wanted to be the CMO of the Coca-Cola, right? And mostly doing the advertising that we all watch in TV of Coke and Santa and everything, right? That's kind of the I think where my passion started, right? Then I get more in technology, and then I discovered that it was not so much about the brand, that it's actually about the teams and the different, right, being articulating the different functions, right? That it's that even to build a brand, you have to have a lot of uh, cross-functional things happening at the same time, right? That is not simple, but that's kind of the. But yes, my journey was more around creativity and creative, and then it kind of I get more in love of that of um. I like to say that again, every leadership role, right, has this kind of orchestra vision, right? You're kind of a orchestra conductor, right, where you have to make sure that everything sounds perfect or align, and you're kind of, okay, now we need more piano, now we need more, right, violin. So when you had that perfect harmony, right, is where you kind of say, okay, this is the right product, or this is the right result.
Very interesting. That is a question that I really like because for some people, those kind of goals have been, there since they're a child. So they have a really big plan that they have been executed for years and years. And for some other people, it's more like they start discovering things throughout their career. So
Mhm.
for me, it has been always interesting to see like successful people and leaders, how did they got there? Was it a long-term plan, or something that started with the in throughout their path they started to discover? So why don't you tell us a little bit more? How did you become Wiseline's CMO and Chief Experience Officer, and what's the story behind that?
So again, it was, and sometimes you are not looking it, you're not pursuing it like directly, right? But things happen, and then you take the opportunities and run with it, right? So I was just finishing another uh, work. I was going to take some time off, right, and enjoy, and then someone recommended, hey, why don't you meet these people from Wizeline? I knew about Wizeline before. I was uh, reading about them and get some good referrals. And they say, well, they are trying to rebuild a marketing team there. But I was saying, I don't want a full-time position. I can be more a consultant or a part-time intern, something, right? And that's kind of how I started. So it was more an honest conversation. I was not pursuing the job. It was more, hey, can you give us some advice where we should go? So that's how I started more the conversation. The good thing about that is when you're not looking right to get there, you're more honest, or you can be more assertive and say, hey, this I don't like, this you can do different. And so I think it was more my approach as a someone that was not going to be running the team, but mostly giving the advice. Then I took there here, right, and say, well, I did more a recommendation. This is what I will do. This is how I will organize the team, etc. And at the end, they say, well, why don't you do it, right? Instead of hiring someone else to do it. And that's kind of how I kind of, and that's assuming, right, the full position, but it was more as a, hey, what would you do with this situation, right? So then I stick, and then I right, I embrace it. But that's kind of how my landing at Wiseline was someone really introduced me to Bismarck at that time, and that's how the conversation started. At that moment, I think there was a change in the marketing team. They were trying to see where they wanted to take the brand, and that's how my relationship with Wiseline started almost 2 years ago.
Very interesting, very interesting. And now I want to go to another topic that I also like a lot, and is about building teams. Teams are important in everything. Like, you cannot build anything or reach any real goals without teams. So, as both as CMO and a Chief Experience Officer, you have built teams. Fausta, what are your guiding principles when it comes to building high performance teams?
So first, I like to mix people, right? That's what I most enjoy of my work, really building teams, and I've been doing that, and a lot of the teams also been following me through other companies, right? But I also discover new people that kind of they stay with us. I think that once you discover good teammates, you want to stick with them, right? For me, are the more important uh, part of the successful of any story, right? If you don't have a good team, if you're not a good team player, um, you will not get anywhere, right? So for me, the first thing is that the people that joins the team are team players, right? And that are not just big ego individuals, right? They're people that can play together. And on the other side is people that make things happen, right? I'm a more make it happen person, right? And that's what I look at, right? So you find a way, you solve a solution, right? You discover the problem, you do it. There's not a maybe you follow a playbook, right? Maybe there's no a playbook that you have to follow, so you have to write your own playbook, but you have to make it happen. So really, action has to be paired with that, right? And as I was saying, right, the role of this orchestra, right, a conductor, is so important that each member of the team understands what are they are good at, right? So what are the where do you shine, right? And sometimes that takes time. Some people know it right away, right? And others they don't. So to be able to code people or help them discover, because that's the hardest part, to discover what are you. Some people know it, but sometimes don't. And how do you discover how you're good at, right? And sometimes it's maybe you when you're paired with someone at one project, you discover something of yourself that you didn't, right? Or whatever. So that type of things are for me important in terms um of a team player. And at the end, it's also have fun, right? I you have to have we spend so much time in working and doing the thing that if you can't find something that you have fun with it, and that at least get you inspired, give you some hopes, give you some passion, right? It's hard. So some of the things that I look for, that right, team player, and make it happen person, and that knows to have fun, right? Even when you are in a deadline or when you're a work program, right? There's always a way that you can say, okay, this is an angle that we can play. And
You mentioned about discovering people. How do you discover great team players? I think that's something that's not easy. Like, how do you discover people? Like you, because well, I know that your son plays soccer, right?
Mhm.
And in soccer, they have I don't remember how they call them, but they have people that actively go and look at different teams, small teams, high schools, or different leagues to try to score people, and that's very active. But
Yes, the
I don't see
scouters,
that so
right?
much in
Or the
companies. Like,
scouting.
how do you do that?
Um, I'm always discovering people. I'm always scouting. And even my team today, I steal people from other teams as well, right? If I like you, if I discover someone in the in right that I work with, right, that I know they have something that I need, right, and go directly and have conversations and say, hey, what do you want to do? Are you happy where you would you consider, right? I've been poking people, right, from some other scenes, but I'm always like, you do that like instinctively, right? Like it's in you, right? Because you know what you need. As you're always kind of being this coach. You're talking about sports, right? You always need to be building. Okay, I need my 11, right?
Exactly.
And you are always knowing, okay, I need this, I need that, right? So I'm always looking, and also um, I ask for referrals. I do some LinkedIn, right, watch and say, okay, this person could be here. I have kind of that mental archive of people, right? And
Yeah, I think that also events are very useful for that. Maybe trying to create communities, meetups, something. I think is very interesting because
no,
the
and
people,
I train
sometimes
the
the
people.
people that go there are really proactive, right? So
No,
it's like,
and you create a culture of that as well, right? So every time I need a new person on the team or a replacement, or right, I ask my team and say, hey, do you have anyone like that we can work, that we can bring for this position? Do you have a friend? Do you know anyone on the organization that can help here, right? Do you um is there any referral, right? Or I even ask them, hey, I just I don't know, I'm in a call and I see something that I like, someone that I like how he expressed an idea. So then I say, hey, what is this person doing? This person could be a good fit for that, right? So um I usually consult my team as well on that, right? So the whole team is scouting and thinking, and even as I was saying, trying, and depending on the projects, especially we are a small team and we have a lot of activities. So usually we work on pairs or groups, right? So when you match different people for different projects, right? You also see how their strengths work, what they're capable. Sometimes they don't know what they're capable until they try it and they discover a new thing, or yeah, like. But I am it's something that you have and see, right, on others. So
yeah, that's true. I think that
Mhm.
what you mentioned about LinkedIn is very useful. I have used that and I think is a very good tool to score people, and also events. I think
Mhm.
it's really is really useful because you can really see the person interacting, actually see them beyond just a LinkedIn profile. So I also think that's
Yes,
very.
but sometimes the trap there is sometimes you need people that are loud, right? And that are out there, and sometimes you need to find that people that don't like to show up, right? That don't like to create. So so for that, for me, it's someone else that refers to you and say, "Hey, I like this one," or that the and even in interviews, right? I ask my team to interview the new members, right? So they sometimes they see something that I don't, right? So
That's a really good point. And I want to continue this topic about teams. And we have been saying the, that AI has advanced a lot in the last few years. And as CMO and, well, Chief Experience Officer, how are you and your teams embracing AI? And how do you see the roles changing?
so for me, AI is my best employee, right, or my best team because it can first it can help my team focus in the creative part, right? Because AI can help us with automation, with data analysis, with personalization, right? With content generation. I think marketing is one of the functions that's been more disrupted by AI. And that the good thing about that is that first it helps my team work faster, right? We can go faster, accelerate what we can do. We are stronger because we have more information and we can do more, right? And with personalization, we also can be more customized, right? We can be better, closer to the client, right? Before, and it give us more time for that, right? Give us more time to be creative, to be um, building wow experience, right, for clients and for employees. So uh,
How do you see the roles of people in your marketing team that were more dedicated to creating content, like the designing the images and the videos? How do you see those roles evolving?
I think that AI is a superpower for them because again, they can be doing more and better, and maybe it
That is,
can
some people
enhance
are
them.
afraid of that being replaced, right? And more those, for example.
Yes, but I think it's like everything. Is if you have to embrace the tool, right? So when you use it to your power, it's like I feel like we are more Iron Man, right? So now we have more power. Wait, everything happens now.
Yes, I agree. I agree, but I also think that that is something that we're gonna have to experiment and try to adapt, because it's not easy, right? To see,
No, I
because
think you
yeah,
need
they,
to
they also,
just.
it's very interesting to see that these tools are really powerful, and like how they say, AI is not gonna replace you. The person that learns to use AI is the one that is gonna replace you if you don't. So it's very interesting to see how can you adapt to avoid that. How can
It's
you add
in
more
you,
value?
right? Yes, I think I'm not denying the replacement. If you don't do if you don't do nothing, right? If you don't embrace AI, if you just keep doing right, what you're doing, and you don't learn and you don't use it as a superpower, yes, maybe we'll replace you, right? So the good thing is that the power is in you, right? If you embrace, if you see, okay, what I can do, how I can use it, it actually give you more skills because there's everything so new that the ones that embrace it faster and use it and test and learn, they will have more opportunities, right? Because there's a lot of industries that, but if you're seeing it as a threat, as something that, oh, I don't want to know because it's the enemy, um, for sure I will become the enemy, right? You're saying it yourself, so you have the power to decide what you do with AI. I think that's the and maybe again, maybe I feel like there are going to be some new jobs, new roles, right? As everything. And maybe it's the opportunity to also look at that, right? But I feel like what you can do is to ignore it and to be afraid of. Uh, so
Absolutely.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I really like that one. Yeah, absolutely. Being afraid and not trying to embrace it, definitely. I don't think that's the right mindset. And now that we're talking about that and how to adapt, I know that one topic that you like is how to reach that best version, and adaptation
Mhm.
is part of that. So, what does being your best version mean to you, and how do you intentionally pursue that day by day?
So for me, the for me it's a new it's a new concept. What I call this the best version, or the reflecting on the best version, right? I feel like for a long time in my career, I was always focusing on right the empty glass, what I didn't have, what I have to work on, right? What I was missing, what I could have done better, what I uh, until one day I did one of those programs that you were mentioning. It was more about woman empowerment, right? That I realized that I wasn't alone, that a lot of women had this issue as well, right? Uh, that it told me, hey, you can focus on the bad, or in the on the full glass, or in the empty glass, right? And when you start focusing on the full glass, right, all the things that you do good, that you are, that makes you shine, right, that make you better, and you start developing those, right? You're having more fun, you have more light, right? You shine more, and no one cares about the other bad things that you still need to maybe develop and adjust some things, but it gives you much more power, right? And that's what I try to do also with my teams, right? We all have good and bad things, right? Uh, but sometimes when focusing on so much on the bad things, or what is missing, or we don't have, right? And we don't develop the other ones, right? So that's kind of for me the bad and good version that I like to put. It's about energy, and energy and focus, right? So I don't know if that's answer your question, but that.
And do you have maybe any routines or any kind of thing that you do day by day to try to work on that, or something, or not? Or how do you
um
work on that mindset?
no, again, I feel like it's as you're saying, it's a mindset, it's a change of paradigm that have to do. Again, some people don't, and they are already great, and they don't need that, but most of us, right, we are always focusing on, oh, I make a mistake, I can do it better. So for me, it's really more let go, right? So don't stay so much on the mistakes or the bad things, and like learn fast, or let go and move on, right? Try again. That don't kind of reanalyze and go back and what I can, right? Yes, learn, but give it a small time and then move to the next thing. That's kind of one.
Yeah, very interesting. That's similar to what Kobe Bryant used to say, that, for example, one time I think he lost a championship, and what he said was that the next day he started working on for the next championship. Like he always tried to think about the future and how to improve and not stay in the past. And part of the exercise that he liked was to always try to talk in future tense, to stop focusing so much in the past and trying to think, okay, what's the next thing?
and sometimes we are our worst enemy, right? So
Right.
when sometimes you make a mistake, or something doesn't go how you have it in your head, right? The only one that had the whole picture was you. The people just see you react, and for them was okay, a small thing, right? So sometimes we are to control that, and to be able to try to keep going. That for me is one thing, and the other is also surrounded with people, right? With positive people, and with people that also look the full class, right? That are trying to do their best uh, effort every day, and not the ones that are always kind of, hey, uh, focusing
I
on
agree. I agree.
what can be
I
done
think
wrong, right? Like,
that's really good advice. Yeah, definitely. The people that you surround yourself with is definitely very, very important for you. As they say, like you are what you. Sometimes they say you are what you eat, right?
hmm
So that's also what you consume as a person, what you read,
exactly.
or who, like the people that you interact with. That's really important. That defines you. And talking about being your best self, and we were talking about also personal brand. How do you see personal brand being a vehicle for creating opportunities that allow you to become the best version of yourself?
Well, of course, a personal brand or a strong personal brand opens door, right? And attract like-minded individuals, right? When you're doing something good, you then attract what you were saying, that right, the force of attraction, and also aligns opportunities, right, with your values and your goals. But really, the first step of any personal brand and is to your self-awareness, right? You need to know it's like a product. You are the product. You need to know you. You need to know what you're good at, and what's your purpose, what are your values,
But
and
also
make
creating
decisions
the
as well.
visibility, right? The visibility, because you can be, I don't know, like sometimes I think you can be Lionel Messi and have that talent, but if you don't know how to sell that, how to create the opportunities, I don't think that Messi would be where he is, right? That's where I think, for example, his father played a really big role, because he was the one that, for example, created the visibility that he needed. Because you can have talent, but if you don't have the opportunities or know how to create the opportunities, I think that it's not enough.
No, I think you have to. And I used to be a long time ago before social media, right? I used to be a professor I was doing corporate communications, corporate branding, was a professor at a university. And the first exercise that I do with my group was, uh, now it's common because everyone has their personal brands, right? But it was a personal brand exercise, right? So they need to treat themselves as a product. They need to create their own values, their own logo, their own jingle, even, right? And that is kind of treat yourself as a marketing product, right? Uh, and do a marketing plan on how you go to market and amplify themselves. But the most important part of the textile was knowing themselves, right? When they were young, they didn't know it. So, but usually your brand yourself, you don't change a lot, right? What you're good at, you maybe improve it or better, right? But is to have that focus, to have that, okay, what I'm going to do, what I like, what I don't like. As important as what you are good at is as important as what you are not, right? Because a brand is about also making choices. The best brands are the ones that are very right, clear, and some people, as you were saying, amplifying. Some people want to, when you don't know yourself, when you don't have that self awareness, you can be everything, right? And you're not. That's not a good brand because you have to have your target. So I feel like if you start treating, or if you want to start an exercise on that, how do I start from a personal branding? It starts with, okay, what I'm good at, what do I believe, where I want to go, and then how you amplify that, or where are the best messages, or where are the best places where I can be for this uh, brand. But to be a good brand, it has to be authentic, right? It has to be real. And we see it with Messi, right? As you were saying, right? Uh, he's not a social person, but right? He's true to his principles and to his values, right? He's not trying to do what he's not. And when he does in some commercials that we see, right? So this is out of his comfort zone, right? This is stretching his personal brand. So for me, that's kind of all personal brand starts with that, with understanding yourself and where to play.
Definitely, definitely. And I think, yeah, I remember that I started to think about this more when I read a book. It was more of a career focused book from Betty Liu. that is, I think, an anchor from Bloomberg, and she did that career book asking really big CEOs and really successful people like what was their secret for the career. And one of them said that he treated himself as a company of one
Mhm.
person, and that in a company of one you have to do marketing, do finance, do everything, right? So marketing is also a really important part of you, because actually what you're doing sometimes, or not sometimes, but when you're actually, for example, he said, you are not looking for a job, you are selling your services. And sometimes if you look at it, like if you change the mindset to that, you start seeing the importance of marketing and thinking, okay, I'm a person, I'm doing things, offering things. I also have to think about marketing. And that's when, it's,
Now
I
it's more
understood that.
natural. Now for us, it's all more natural because a little bit of social media is doing that, right? With the influencers, and that back in the day was not like that, right? Only the ones that now it feels like on the opposite, right? That everyone is building the brand of themselves, and sometimes they don't have enough proof points, right? Because that's
Right,
also
right.
important, right? Or so I like also another book that's about that is Tom Peters. It's an old book. It's called the brand of you or something, right? The brand called you, and it's actually about that, right? How you treat yourself, uh, and really, especially the more you advance in your career as well. The more important that is, right? And I have in my role, I have also the job to build brands, right? To build executive brands. And sometimes that's easy because you have good material, and sometimes it's hard because there's not a lot. I say, hey, how do I do a brand right with this person
Yeah.
that is not good at public speaking or good? So, but the idea is that to be authentic, right? So you don't have to force, uh, because at the end, it will show.
I agree.
But
Yeah, I
yes, of
agree.
course, the ones that start early, the ones that invest early in that, they will have uh, more opportunities that come
For
to
sure.
you.
And sometimes it's about experimenting and trying, because sometimes like it's like the dilemma of the chicken and the egg. When do you start? When you have a full grown career, or or when you're just starting? It's I think it's both ways. Like you have
Well,
to
it's what you're doing to
consider.
yourself, right? It's what you are doing as Alvaro, the mentor's office, right? It's your product, it's your brand, it's your and it's like that. You'd make it happen. Maybe at the beginning was, hey, I will start up who I am to do a podcast, and now you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's and yeah, exactly. Well, that and it's like the sometimes you just have to do it. Like when is the right time to start something? Like uh, never. Like
Exactly.
that's some advice that Jordan Peterson used to say. Like sometimes when's the right time to, I don't know, to get married or something. Like it's never. Like sometimes you need to take the initiative, and yeah, that's what I did. And that, like with the process you start learning, because if you don't start and don't make mistakes, I think that's the point where you maybe get stuck and don't start growing. At least maybe if you make mistakes, you can learn from them. So that's
No,
why I think it's valuable.
it's aligned with what I was saying about the best, right? You focus on the good things. Okay, you have some certainties that help you grow and help you make the jump, and you take it.
Exactly. And now talking about this, well, personal branding and personal marketing, let's say, how do you see this personal branding influencing a company's marketing strategy, like Wiseline? Like a
So
little
really,
more
personal
for
brands,
each
yes.
employee. Yeah,
For me, they really humanize the company, right? And build trust, and create stronger connections, right, with clients and partners. Right, we are a service company, right? So we don't sell any product. right? So what we sell or what we give is value and expertise, and you do that through people, through personal connection and storytelling, right? The way you showcase the value is really through storytelling. So the more powerful the content is the real one. So that for me is the key with how these connect, right? Because you trust more if you're looking for a job or if you're looking for a right. If you see a client doing a reference, you will believe more that than if the company says I'm the best company of the world, right? But if you go to Glassdoor and see right the hey yes they treat me well, and so the more the but to get to that point where your employees and when your customers talk about you, right, you need to be doing a good job as well. So it's kind of the chicken of and the egg as well, right? So if we do a good job with employees and customers, then they will be our ambassadors, then they will be the personal brand as well. They will want to talk good their personal stories.
I think
uh,
that's very good. And yeah, I feel that there's like a synergy, because if like individual employees start creating content and about the company, or that could help the company, I think that helps the company to grow, and as you say, create more of an authentic picture of the company. But I think also the company, and that really helps the company. But I think employees can also take advantage of that, of they are part of a brand called Wizeline, and that can also help their careers, right? It's not just
mhm.
like both. I think that both the company and each individual can can benefit from this.
No, and we are in a creator area, right? So the company need to give space, right, for personal branding as well. And that's what we are also trying to do, right? We launch in Guadalajara, we have a content studio, right? That has uh, where you can do your own podcast, where you can record
Oh
your
yeah.
own videos, right? We do it for ourselves, for all the for all the branding and corporate messages. But the idea is that it's open for everyone that wants to use it as well, right? So I feel like uh, that collaboration we're going to see more and more in the market as well, uh, on how um, both parts, right, are benefit for that. And even we have the dream to even open it outside and say, hey, do you want to create content, right, for all the content producers that are there? Do you want to come and create content in our office? Come
Cool.
and you can do it. So
I didn't know that. I think that's a very interesting initiative. And now I want to talk about another topic that I like, and is careers. And I want to ask you, what was the biggest challenge that you have faced in your career, and how did you overcome that difficulty?
um, a little bit of, I think, I I don't like the word, but I will use it. That is this kind of imposter syndrome, right? Um, Mostly, especially in two times. One that were actually at the same time. One was when I was relocated right to from Argentina to New York, right, and you have to go and work when your English is not your native English, it's
Okay.
not your native language, right? So how do you right that could be a big barrier to say okay I'm still good but maybe I'm not as polished, right? I have an accent. I and at some point you have to say okay but I'm still good, how do I prove that, right? And that could make you feel like, okay, I'm not good enough. I write they will not understand what I'm trying to say. I something that they say in 1 hour in one sentence, I have to go do a big explanation, right? So that's one that I have to overcome. And at some point, I say, okay, I will do it. I will speak. They will like someone will understand me, and not to be afraid, right, of making mistakes or saying, hey, uh, I will I will speak only when I polish my language. And the other one was after. Having my first kids and say, hey, I have to go back to work. and how I'm going to manage, right? How I'm going to do to be the perfect mom, the perfect wife, the perfect worker, right? And that kind of how you do that. And at
How
some
did you
point you
do
say,
that?
okay, I don't know, I did it, but first with again teams again, but that's more personal teams, right? So to have a support uh, uh, environment, right? To have my husband say, "Hey, go back to work. I will support. We are a team," right? To be able to ask for help and to understand that maybe you can do it all, but maybe not at the same time, right? So to put priorities to say, okay, yes, you can be a mom, you can be a wife, you can be as well a professional, right? And you do it. So but sometimes the limits we put the limits ourselves, and
Yeah.
there's always a way, right, to get it done.
I think that's a really good point. We tend to restrict ourselves a lot and put a lot of limits on what's possible. And sometimes if we relax that, I think that we can solve a lot of problems. That I have seen that a lot in my life. And another thing that I really like is to talk about success rules. So,
Mhm.
Fausta, what are your three top success rules?
Well, it is a little bit of what I already said, right? For me, is that kind of make it happen. If you really want it, find a way to make it happen. And and if you can't find a way, ask and say, "Hey, I want to do this. How I can do it? How?" Right? Use your network, use your team, use
Or
your
books, right?
coaches or books, or right, find a way. But if you really want it, you don't stop, right? Don't settle for, okay, no, I will not do it. Like, uh, and maybe make it happen with mistakes or start small, right? Like, but move in the direction. Sometimes when we want something that is very big, we don't move because it's so big that you can. Right? But if you divide that big thing into, okay, what's the first small thing that I need to be closer of what I want, right? And divide it into small steps, it's less scary. Uh, and the other one is kind of embrace change, right? When you assume that change is a reality and not an exception, that the things are always going to change. The weird things that they stay the same is part of your planning, right? It's part of your reality. So you don't have that fatigue, that change fatigue, or say, oh, everything is changing again. My role is changing again. My priority is changing again, right? But if you assume, okay, the normal things that everything's going to change. If things stay still, that's weird, right? Enjoy it a little bit, but um, you again, you're less stressful. You let go easily because nothing stuck. Uh, and the third one is the build a team, right? Go
Ability.
together. It's right. So it's better. Everything is better together, right? Than do it alone.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. Like
so
there's a quote that says that you can go faster by yourself, but you can go further away in a group or as a team.
and exactly. I and also it's fun because you can share and you can celebrate together, or even you can cry together. But even that is better than just doing it alone.
Very interesting advice. Now I know that we don't have too much time, Fausta, so I wanted to talk about the last two points that I wanted to make. And the first one is, what does a great Wiseline employee look like from your point of view? And what skills do they need?
Um, for me, it's similar of the principles. That's why I'm also here, right? Someone that who is proactive and that take ownership, that is entrepreneur entrepreneur, right? That collaborate, that has passion about innovation. And it's also important for me that it's someone that has strong communications, right? That can solve problems. and most important, that can embrace change, that is able to adapt. We are in a technology company. Everything changed much faster, and we are kind of the tip of the spear of companies that change. Uh, so change has to be in your DNA.
I completely agree. And I think that for that, maybe lifelong learning is really helpful to be able to embrace change and adapt. And also for communication, that I think is really, really important. I think that trying to create the spaces to be able to practice that is really useful. And that is one of
Mm.
the reasons why I promote Toastmasters within Wizeline, because I think that's, you can read a lot about communication, but if you never actually, practice that, like, good luck. You're, you're never gonna make any progress. And the last question that I have, Fausta, is what, or not question, but I wanted to ask you if you have any message or advice that you wanted to give the people that work at Wiseline.
Um, I think a little bit of what I just said, right? Don't keep active, right? Stay curious. Stay. Uh, there are a lot of opportunities. We are in one of the industries that have more opportunities flowing, right, to us. Uh, so the more you are there, moving, being proactive, listening to what's around, and make it things happen, right? The more you can take for for the more you can do for the company and also for yourself, right? Because there we are learning and adapting and changing so fast that uh, the more open to everything that is happening you are, right? The you're going to be near the best opportunities. So that's my advice. And connect, right? Connect with as much as people as you have, and leaders, and be curious of what they're doing and what they're developing, right? We are building the future. Uh, we are in a specific time, right, of building the future of what's going to maybe change, right, the reality, and you are there, right? Maybe there are other friends are that are in other companies that are more boring, and but we are in the industry that is changing the future. So use that opportunity, right? You're here for that, for a reason to do for that. So use that opportunity to keep learning, to be. Um, so that's kind of my advice.
Well, very good, and I really liked it, Fausta, and I wanted to thank you for your time. I think it's very valuable to talk with leaders in a company. And as I mentioned before we did the interview, one of my motivations to that was, or to this, is that one of my regrets from a previous experience working in a company was not talking to the, like, to the, yeah, to the owner or to the CEO about how to improve, and, like, what did he want and what advice did he have. And I think that based on that, like, since then I'm always trying to try to talk with leaders to see what do they think, like, how can I be better, and what advice do they really have for the people, and it's not just something that they keep for themselves, and don't help the, or, yeah, don't, like, sometimes people, like, as you say, communication is really important, and sometimes because the employees and the leaders don't communicate that often, I think that that's one of the reasons that sometimes we don't reach our full potentials and have some regrets. So thank you a lot for this opportunity, Fausta.
Yes, I think we don't need to be afraid of asking questions, right? And look for help, and you were saying, what would the advice be? More like Alvaro, right? I mean, reach out, create your own opportunities, right? Create what you need, and reach out. So I feel like that's also a good advice, right? We we are not perfect. We don't know everything, right? But the more we can be closer. Um, right, the better, because we all want to grow. So
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I really appreciate this because, as I mentioned, this person is now like a famous CEO,
mhm.
and I listened to his podcast of him like 5 years after I left that company, and I said I wish that that guy would have told me that at that time. So that's why I'm doing this, to don't have it, that regret again. So thank you very much,
Perfect.
and thank you for the audience, and we see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.